Hello Year 7, this is Miss Ven here and welcome to your first lesson of remote learning for drama. So, obviously we weren't expecting to be in this position, but we are going to continue with the exact lessons that I would have been teaching you if we were in the classroom, okay? So you're not learning something pointless and you are not missing out on any learning. The only difference is we don't get to do the fun performance part at the end of the lesson, okay? So this video shouldn't be longer than 10 to 15 minutes and it's going to teach us as an introduction to storytelling. So, I'm going to give you 20 seconds just to have a think about what you think storytelling is, what it means to you. You can use that picture for help if you need. Lovely. Now I'm going to put a word on this video, and this word is a key word that we're going to be using when talking about telling stories. And that word is embellish. So you can say that out loud if you want. You can break it down. Embellish. Now, do you know what that means? Now, what does it mean? Well, there's two meanings to embellish. The first is making a statement or a story more interesting by adding extra details that are often untrue. But the other meaning is making something more attractive by the addition of decorative features or details, okay? So you can see a pair of shoes there, trainers, that have had stickers and patches added onto it to make it more attractive. Now, that definition, this one, we are not using today. We're focusing on this one, making a statement more interesting by adding extra details. So I'm going to give you an example now. I'm going to tell you a short story. Okay. Today I left the house at 7:30 and caught the bus to school. Now, obviously we know this isn't true because of the pandemic, but most days that would be accurate. But we can all agree it's not very interesting. So what does it look like if I embellish the story? Well, let's have an example. So we go from today I left the house at 7:30 and caught the bus to school to today, after fighting my sister to use the shower first, I rushed out of the door. I missed the bus because I tripped over a giant crack in the pavement and I ran faster than an Olympic runner to make it to school on time, just before they closed the gate. Now, obviously, some of those details aren't true. You've all seen me. You know that I don't run faster than an Olympic runner. You also know that I'm almost always on time, so I would not have made it late and missed the gate. But that makes a much more interesting story, doesn't it? So the embellishments are all the bits that I have added that make the story more interesting. So, fighting with my sister, rushing out the door, missing the bus, tripping over, running really fast, just making it to school on time. All the things that make a listener more interested and more engaged with your story. Now, the next thing we're going to look at is the who, what, and where of a story. Now, these are the three elements you need to make a story really interesting. Well, to be honest, even to just make a story, if you don't have these three things, you have not got a story. So what are these three things? Well, you've got your who, which is your characters. Who is the story about? You've got your what, which is your plot. What happens to these characters? And then you've got your where, your location. Where does it take place? So you've got character, who, plot, what, location, where. We're going to look at three stories now. I'm going to give you time to decide what you think the who, what, and where is. And then I'll tell you what I think, okay? So let's test if you know the answers. So, looking at Red Riding Hood. Do you know what the character, plot, and location is? I'll give you 20 seconds to try and decide. If you want, you can pause the video and write these down if you've got some paper in front of you. So, here's my answers. I think the characters are the wolf, Little Red Riding Hood, the huntsman, Grandma, maybe Red Riding Hood's mum at the start. The plot, well, girl tries to deliver some groceries to her grandma, goes through the woods. Wolf tricks her into saying where her grandma lives, and then the wolf goes and eats grandma. And in some versions of the story, the huntsman comes and saves the grandma. In other stories, he just comes and kills the wolf. And the location, well, there's a few, isn't there? You've got the woods, you've got grandma's house, you've got Red Riding Hood's house. But without all of those things I've just listed, you would not have this story, would you? Okay, good. Let's try this again with Goldilocks and the Three Bears. Okay, I'm going to give you 10 seconds this time. Character, plot, and location. Excellent. So we've got characters, Three Bears and Goldilocks. Nice and easy. It's literally in the title, Goldilocks and the Three Bears. Plot. Goldilocks breaks into their house. She eats their food, she sits on their chairs, and she goes to sleep in their beds. Very sneaky, and I think quite rude, little girl. And the plot is that they come back. Sometimes they're really angry at her. In the picture here, which is obviously aimed at much younger children, they're weirdly happy to see her. Location, the Three Bears' house. Again, this is one location. Some stories will be in one place. Some stories might have 20 different locations. Last one. The Big Bad Wolf and the Three Little Pigs. Okay, so again, characters. We've got the Three Little Pigs and we've got the Big Bad Wolf. Plot. The Three Little Pigs are trying to escape from being eaten. They each build a house. One makes a house out of straw, but the wolf blows it down. One makes a house out of wood, but that wolf blows it down. And the last makes a house out of brick, and they are safe. Location, well, you might say the woods, you might say a field. You might say that each of those three houses are its own location. Now, the thing that's interesting about this is that it's a very simple way to break down a story, isn't it? Three elements you've got to think about: character, plot, and location. But it applies to even the most complicated films or TV shows or books that you read. So today, when you go and you put on Netflix or you open up your book, look out for these details. In this scene I'm looking at, what is the location? Who are the characters? What is the plot? This is the basis of storytelling. Those simple rules still apply everywhere. And if you know this, you will always be able to make a story that is rounded, that is believable and engaging. Now, we're not just looking at what should be in your story, but we're looking at how you can tell stories that are interesting. I'm sure you've all listened to someone and gone, oh my God, I'm so bored of their story right now. And there might be other people that you could just listen to telling their stories for hours. And there's reasons for that. So have a think now. What do you think are the important skills for a storyteller? Those people you know who you love listening to tell stories, why? What is it about the way they speak? Well, I've got 3 here. I'm not even certain, they're definitely not the only 3, but they're pretty important ones. You might think of some more that you'd like to add to the list. So the 3 things that I think make a really important storyteller are voice projection. Remember we did that task where we stood on opposite sides of the hall and you had to make your voice really loud. You had to breathe through your diaphragm with your ribs, breathing properly. And you had to project your voice to the other side of a room. Well, a storyteller has to do that so the audience can hear them. They also have to speak clearly or enunciate. So they don't rush or mumble their words. And they make sure they can be heard. Enunciate. That might be a word you haven't come across. And lastly, they need to be aware of their audience. So things like making sure you're facing your audience. If I was telling you a story and I was looking around the room and I was looking down at my shoes, you'd get bored. But if I was looking straight at you all, giving you eye contact, giving you facial expressions, you'd be a lot more interested, wouldn't you? And if someone used these 3 skills, I'd start to pay attention to them. And lastly, I want you to think about, can you get a job as a storyteller? Can that be your full-time job, your profession? The thing that you earn enough money to survive with? Well, actually, yes, you can. So there's professional storytellers and they get paid just to go and tell stories to people, not to act it out, not to learn their lines and say a role to an audience, but actually to just tell stories. And they do this at lots of places, including local libraries to children or community centres, at charity events. They come into schools to tell stories. We've had people do that here. Care homes to elderly people. Festivals. And some people even make a living recording podcasts that people listen to, just of them telling stories. And that's just a few, there's loads more. Now, storytelling itself, just someone standing on stage telling people a story, is so popular that in America they have a national festival every year, which over 10,000 people attend. So this basis of acting, of theatre, of television, of films, of books, the actual basis of telling someone a story is still really popular worldwide. And it's as simple as someone standing on a stage, using the 3 key elements of a story, plot, character, location, and entertaining their audience. Now, I want to test your knowledge of what you just took on board from what I just told you. So, now you've watched this video, you should go to the quiz on Show My Homework, and I want you to try your best to complete it. Now, you have 3 attempts to do that. And next week will either be a similar video or I will be teaching you live. But either way, good luck and please keep safe. Goodbye.